Yo, what is good, folks? It's your boy Sports PSP in the building. Man, hope everyone is enjoying a fantastic Monday. Even though it's raining bad in New Jersey. But anyway, I'm here. Folks, of course, we got to talk about yesterday's game between the Washington Commanders and the Denver Broncos. What were the reasons why the Commanders won yesterday against the Denver Broncos? They came back from an 18-point deficit. It's been the largest comeback since 1990, November 4th, 1990, against the Detroit Lions. Also, I'm going to talk about some key plays, key moments, what was the offensive and defensive player of the game, and so much more. Commanders Demand starts right now.
You're watching Commander's Demand with your host, Sports PSP, exclusively on the Grid Network.
Yo, what is up, folks? It's your boy Sports PSP. Welcome to a episode of Commander's Demand. I hope everyone is enjoying a fantastic and wonderful Monday, folks. Even though, like I said, it's raining bad in Jersey, but at the same time, if you're a Commanders fan, this is a great feeling, folks. Washington is 2-0. We're tied with the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles for first place in the division. This is the first time going back to 2011. We're 2-0 this season. And, folks, man, today's episode is named Rollercoaster because that was the type of emotion or feeling I was feeling last night, as well as Commanders fans last night. Because in that game, I was losing my emotions. And anyone, y'all saw me on Twitter, I was losing my shit. Because at one point, the Commanders were trailing 21-3. Like, I think in the second quarter, 21-3, when Russell Wilson connected on some beautiful deep ball passes to Marvin Mims Jr. It looked like Russell Wilson was going to throw for 300 or 400 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns, and the Broncos would have won that game 40-10. That's how bad I thought it was looking, but Washington was like, no, we ain't going to let that happen. We damn sure ain't going to let that happen. And I was losing my shit, man, on Twitter, social media. I was losing it, folks, man. I was just losing it. But then Washington picked themselves back up. I got to give a tremendous amount of credit to the Washington team. Offensively, man, I am so glad that Eric Bieniemy is our offensive coordinator. Because you see the job what he's doing right now as the offensive coordinator for the Commanders, and you see how the Chiefs' offense is struggling lately. That should tell you a thing or two how great Eric Bieniemy is. I bet Kansas City is still missing Eric Bieniemy. And even though they still have Andy Reid, great head coach, Hall of Famer, and even though they have the best quarterback, let alone the best player in football, and Patrick Mahomes, and still the best tight end in football, Travis Kelce, they sure as hell missing Eric Bieniemy because you saw a glimpse just how good the Commanders' offense was. The only concern that I have with the Commanders' offense, they got sacked 4 times in that game. Now, that's on Sam Howell because he was holding on to the football a little too long, but he was great in that game. He was he played great. He looked like a competent quarterback. He looked straight up competent. The reasons why we won the game, remember, as I said on the last episode, we took care of the football. We took tremendous care of the football. No turnovers in that game we gave up. And we also ran the football effectively. That's what you're going to do. I mean, when you look at rushing yards, we had 122 rushing yards in that game. 122 rushing yards on 23 carries, which is an average of 5.3 yards a carry. And we also had 2 TDs on the ground. Brian Robinson Jr., who had a struggling game against the Arizona Cardinals, this time had 18 carries for 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. The matchup that I talked about on the episode, Terry McLaurin, Patrick Surtain Jr. Terry McLaurin had 5 catches, 54 yards, but he did have that big touchdown in the third quarter that tied the score 21-21. And Sam Howell, he has been playing well. He has been looking pretty good, pretty solid. So I got to tip my hats off to the offense. I got to tip my hats off to Eric Bieniemy, man. He is doing a tremendous job so far with the offense as far as getting the most out of plays, staying zoned in, keeping the moment. I saw more creative offensive plays in that game. And on the defensive side, look, man, I was pissed as hell we gave up. I was pissed as hell we gave up too many deep plays. But the key moment in that game for me, some of the key moments, let's talk about the key moments. One of the key moments in that game, not just the fact that we came back from an 18-point deficit, but how. That in the second quarter, Jamin Davis, that sack on Russell Wilson that led to the fumble recovery. Washington was able to capitalize. Their offense was able to capitalize because on that drive, Sam Howell did connect with Logan Thomas on a touchdown. And unfortunately, Logan Thomas was out the rest of the game. I believe it was concussion. And wishing Logan Thomas nothing but the best. Hopefully, he comes back from a speedy recovery. But I felt like that was the key moment, one of the key moments in that game, because that is what changed the momentum. Because had it not been for that specific play, who knows? Denver, they would have scored some more points. They would have probably scored another touchdown to put a 28-3 lead heading into halftime, or a 24-3 lead. But Jamin Davis made a key sack on that play that led to the fumble, the lost fumble, and then Washington was able to capitalize. The defense only allowed 10 points in the second half. Chase Young, this is the reason why he needed to, this is the reason why I've been so hard on him. He looked like the Chase Young of old. When news reported that he was going to be eligible to play in week 2, I was happy because you're seeing the potential of just how great this Commanders defense could be with him, with Sweat, with Daron Payne, who also played great as well. After all, that's why we took care of him. That's why we gave him the bag. That's why we gave him the money, and deservedly so. The Commanders defense, we did our part against Russell Wilson. We sacked him 7 times in that game. And Russell Wilson finished that game with a QBR of 54.5, a passer rating of 107.3. In the second half, Russ was playing exceptional football. And then in the second half, just like against the Las Vegas Raiders, he was awful. He was awful. He looked pressured. And again, give credit where credit is due to the Commanders. Now, you can say that's on Russ. You can say that's on Sean Payton. You can say that's on the Denver Broncos. Because in the first half, like last week's game against the Las Vegas Raiders, they were playing well. And in the second half, different story. But at the same time, you just got to give credit to Washington in that game. They certainly made some adjustments. They put pressure on Russell Wilson. Chase Young and Montez Sweat and Daron Payne were after him. And I love it. I loved it because I just love it because we just saw so much of the potential with this team, man. Now, I gotta admit, folks, another reason why I put the episode roller coaster, because on those last two possessions, the Commanders, when they were on defense, it was driving me to fucking insane, man. I mean, Chase Young, even though he played great, I mean, there were two penalties that he just drove me crazy. The roughing the passer penalty and the neutral zone infraction, because it put the Broncos in the red zone. And they had a chance to score a TD. But fortunately, he and Montez Sweat were able to squash all of that by that big sack on 3rd and goal. And that was huge, huge. And that was a great bounce back for Chase Young, because you gave up two dumb penalties in that game, in that possession. So you got to make up for it. And he and Montez Sweat did. Then field goal, 35-27. And then the Hail Mary by Russell Wilson. Oh my God, man. It just made me sick to my stomach. I mean, the Hail Mary to Brandon Johnson to put the score 35-33 Commanders. I got to be honest, folks. Once I saw that play, I literally wanted to vomit. And that's exactly what I did. I spent the entire night vomiting, puking. That's how crazy it was for me when I saw that play. Because I'm like, Washington, you got to be shitting me. You gave up that play with less than 10 seconds to go. We're about to end this one. And then that Hail Mary. But still 35-33. There's still plenty of football left. Denver has to tie the game in order to go to OT. And fortunately, Denver failed. Now, I got to be honest, folks, on that failed 2-point conversion, that was pass interference. I'm sorry. I got to call it for what it is. That was pass interference. Should have been called PI. Denver should have had another chance in that game to have another 2-point conversion. They should have. They should have had another 2-point conversion and to put the game into overtime. But fortunately to Washington fans and myself, the refs didn't call PI on that play. It was just crazy, man. It was just a crazy, crazy win, man. It was like it was a roller coaster, world of emotions. It's like, how did we win this way? I mean, we came back from an 18-point deficit. We had a 35-24 lead. We almost blew away the game because of the Hail Mary by Russell Wilson to Brandon Johnson. I'm like, wow. And fortunately, we weren't called for PI. I mean, it's flabbergasting to me that we were able to pull off that victory. It really is. It is truly shocking to me how we were able to pull that off. Because I felt like there was no chance in hell. It's just amazing. And I got to give a lot of credit to the Commanders. Even though it was a roller coaster, they fought their asses off. They fought their asses off throughout that game. Because as Rudy, I think it was Rudy Tomjanovich who once said, the heart of a champion. Never underestimate the heart of a champion. And Washington were the champions that day. I have to give a lot of credit to the Commanders because, honestly, folks, coming into the game, I did not think that the Commanders would win. I did not. Denver, they were 3.5-point favorites to win that game against Washington. I just don't see Sean Payton and this team going 0-2 because, again, a lot, like I said, there was going to be a lot of pressure on Denver, not just with Russell Wilson, but also with Sean Payton, especially with the year that Russell Wilson was coming off last year. They brought in Sean Payton. They felt like this is the guy that can help Russell Wilson because, again, Russell is coming off a terrible season. We brought in Nathaniel Hackett last year. Only reason why we did that was in large part because they thought they had a chance of getting Aaron Rodgers because of their relationship. And I just felt like with all those reasons and the fact that Washington has never been 2-0, started the season off 2-0 since 2011, I just didn't think Washington had much of a chance. And they won. They won that game. No matter how they did it, they just did it, man. So that was crazy. It was just crazy. The reasons, again, like I said, turnover battle. We ran the ball well. 23 carries, 122 yards rushing, a couple of TDs on the ground, over 5 yards a carry. You can win with that. You can win that way when you run the ball well effectively and when you threw the ball well effectively as Sam Howell. And also, there are other reasons you look at why we won this game. I mean, if you're just looking at everything else, penalties. Denver had more penalties in that game. You look at time of possession. Washington, their offense was on the field for 33 minutes and 45 seconds. Denver, 26 minutes, 15 seconds. Total plays. Washington had more total plays than Denver. Total yards. Denver had more total yards than Washington, but just the efficiency from the offense. I mean, this is a reason why we brought in Eric Bieniemy, because before we didn't have that type of offensive creativity before. Well, now we got him. Now we got him. And this is a very, very impressive win. But I just don't feel like Washington is probably going to get enough credit. People are going to look at other reasons why. They're going to probably say the narrative was about Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. They're going to probably talk about a lot of other comebacks. Such one yesterday, our arch rivals, the New York Giants. They came back from a 21-point deficit against the Arizona Cardinals. And mind you, before they scored a touchdown, they were like trailing 60-0 within these two games, the Cowboys game and the Arizona game. They're going to talk about that. But there should be much more conversation about the Washington Commanders. Because new organization, because new ownership now, as I told you before, new offensive coordinator, Sam Howell, first year as a starter. Now as a starter, he's 3-0. He's 3-0 as a starter. You're looking at the potential of what this offense can be. You're looking at the potential of what this team can be. And speaking of the OC, if Eric Bieniemy continues to have these types of excellent play calling days, then I don't want to hear any more shit about, well, he's just a product of Andy Reid. He doesn't lead. He doesn't motivate players. It's not his style of offense. It's Andy Reid's. Bullshit. Same thing that wasn't said about Doug Peterson, John Harbaugh, Sean McDermott. Give Eric Bieniemy his props. This dude knows exactly what the hell he's doing. And when I have someone like Eric Bieniemy on my squad, on my team, it's making me think less and less about Ron Rivera. Because even though I like Ron Rivera as far as a leader, as a motivator, he scratches my head sometimes when it comes to his clock management. Because there are times I just look at him and I say, Ron, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? But Eric Bieniemy, since he's been the guy, since he's been the OC for this team, And you never know, folks. He's going to be, I do see him becoming a head coach. If Ron Rivera decides to walk out the door, if you're Magic Johnson or Josh Harris, you got to give EB an opportunity to be a head coach. Whew. I mean, roller coaster, man. That was a long ass night for me to be. I was on that bottle last night. I was hitting the bottle pretty hard last night, drinking Di Serrano, eating some good food, and then throughout that game, after that game, I was puking like crazy because it was like a roller coaster. I mean, it was like a roller coaster for me to stomach all that in, to deal with all that shit in yesterday. But I'm glad that the Commanders pulled off the victory. I want to give shout outs to offensive, defensive player of the games. Offensive and defensive player of the games. First, let's start with offensive player of the game. Sam Howell, of course. 27 of 39, 299 yards, 2 touchdown passes. He also had a passer rating of 108.8, as well as a QBR of 64.1. Sam Howell played tremendous. I thought he looked very sharp, very poised, made smart decisions. The ball placement was there. And look, folks, even though I've been on the record saying that, early on that the Commanders, they should tank the rest of the season to try to get Caleb Williams. But if Sam Howell can give me these types of performances, and if he can help us win some games, no matter how he does it, I'll think less and less about tanking the rest of the season to get Caleb Williams. I got to give credit to Sam Howell. And I liked him coming out of North Carolina, folks, man. I mean, he had poise, he had accuracy, his deep ball. I mean, I love the deep ball. I love the ball placement that he put. I mean, Sam Howell is starting to make me think less and less about tanking. And then, of course, defensive player of the game. I could have given it to Daron Payne. I could have given it to Montez Sweat, but Chase Young. Again, back to Chase Young. Sorry. Technical difficulties around in my house, folks. I apologize for that. I want to talk about Chase Young. This is the type of performance that he needs to have, because we continuously talk about Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, all the other preeminent defensive players that we have in the NFL. This is what happens when Chase Young is out on that football field balling. And he balled in that game. And just to see him back on that football field, just to see him get after Russell Wilson, getting the sacks, putting pressure on him, reminding Commanders fans, reminding the NFL world what a special talent he is and why we drafted him with the second pick in the 2020 draft. And also, Chase Young, and this is going to be a big year for him because contract. Of course, when it comes to a contract year, you expect your players to play at a high level. Chase Young didn't get his money. Remember, the Commanders did not pick up his 5th-year option. So if Chase Young can remind folks just what a special, unique talent he is and why we drafted him with the second pick, Washington is going to have to pay him a shit ton of money. You saw what the Giants did by not picking up Daniel Jones' 5th-year option. They gave him his money. 4-year, $160 million. Chase Young, you're talking about a former Pro Bowl. You're talking about a former Defensive Rookie of the Year. When Chase Young has these types of performances, this is what he can give us to the table. So I got to give it to Chase Young, man. I got to give it to Chase Young as far as defensive player, because he reminded all of us just how great he can be And why, when he's healthy, he should be mentioned with some of the elite players in the game, some of the elite defensive players in the game, when he's healthy and when he's producing. This was, I was just happy just to watch him play, folks. Even though I'm a Michigan dude and he plays in Ohio, he played at Ohio State, but the fact of the matter is he's a Commander. And for him to play like that, man, it does Commanders fans so much, because we keep waiting and seeing, is he ever going to be healthy? Is he ever going to play? Will he ever look the same? Well, when he has these types of performances like this, it shows you just how unique of a special talent that he is and why we drafted him with the second overall pick. So I got to give credit to Chase Young. Like I said, I want to give credit to Eric Bieniemy, because I feel like since he's been there, he's been a difference maker as far as calling plays, changing the culture. Ron Rivera admitted that some of the players, they were a little too concerned about his intensity. I don't give a fuck, because the bottom line, he's changing that culture, and well needed, because this was an organization and a culture that was a shitty ass one during the Dan Snyder days. And EB's bringing new life. So the Commanders, man, it was a roller coaster, but a win is a win. I will gladly accept that. We're tied with the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles for first place in the division. Let's enjoy this win, but we got to move on, because week 3, we got a big game week 3, home against the Buffalo Bills. We got to focus on the Buffalo Bills heading into week 3. So let's enjoy the win, but let's move on. Also, another player I got to give credit to as well. Other key moments that I forgot to mention besides Jamin Davis. How about Emmanuel Forbes with that interception? Because this was a guy that I was kind of skeptical and critical of prior to the draft because of his frame, and once the Commanders drafted him 16th overall, because I felt like we should have went with Christian Gonzalez. But Emmanuel Forbes did make a key interception in that game, and that's what also helped out the Commanders as well. He's been playing solid. I'm sorry, folks. I'm just roller coaster for me. It's just a roller coaster. Now, with the good comes with the bad. The only bad things I did not like from the Commanders game was the too many deep balls, too many explosive plays that we gave up. Our secondary early on in that game was getting torched. And that's something that Jack Del Rio, the defensive coordinator, Ron Rivera, and the rest of the defense needs to improve on, because we can't keep getting torched like this. And we got to make some adjustments with that. We got to do a better job not giving up the big explosive plays. But overall, at the end of the day, I'm just very impressed with how the way we won that game, how we did not quit. The bottom line is we did not quit in that game. We just found a way to win. Even when we were trailing 18 points, and I felt like, shit, we were about to lose this game by like 30, 40 points. We did not quit. We hung in. We continued to fight. We did whatever it took in order for us to win. So I give my hats off to Washington. I just give my hats off to the team. I just give my hats off to the players. Eric Bieniemy. And I also give credit to the Ron Rivera, because, again, even though I question his clock management and his decision-making from time to time, he is a leader. He is a guy that's going to motivate players. He's a guy that is going to give players, and what he expects from players is their best. So, I'm just very excited that we won the game. Very, very excited. Now we got to move on, and we got to head and focus on Buffalo. Well, anyway, folks, that concludes the rest of the Sports PSP podcast. I appreciate y'all for hopping in, tuning in. Don't forget, Commanders Demand will be back on Wednesday night, 9:30 p.m., only on the Grid Network. Please go follow the amazing talents on the Grid Network, such as Barry himself, Bryson, Brian Flowers, my boy Dev with his At the Bank podcast. Also go check out a lot of other great talent on the Grid Network, man. We're only growing, man. And we're just only going to get better and better and better. And also, folks, you know where to follow me, Sports PSP. Go like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as IG Sports PSP, as well as TikTok Sports PSP 3. Also, there will be a new episode on the Sports PSP podcast, which will be on every Friday nights, 10 p.m., only on the Sports PSP podcast. Go check that out on YouTube and Twitter as well. But anyway, folks, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Monday. I'm going to be busy. I'm still going to be. Damn it, I'm losing my thought. I don't even know what I'm about to say. But anyway, folks, I hope y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Monday. And as usual, folks, God bless.